Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Stanley Cup final edition of Home Ice Advantage. I'm Ted with John and another John. John 2. John Forslund is back with us. Thanks very much for joining us, John. How are you today, sir?
Ted, I'm great. JD, great to see you. And like all of us, we're enjoying the Stanley Cup final here and
Yeah, it's fantastic.
closing in on the end of another season. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It's this is always the depressing part in a way, but
Yeah.
boy, the next handful of days hopefully will be a big build up, unless there's some last second blowout here, right, JD?
Well, yeah. I mean, we had two fantastic games, and then last night was not. I'm not surprised that we were going to get a dud. I kind of thought at some point in the series we were going to have a blowout, and we did. And look, that third period last night was all about the Oilers just trying to extract a pound of flesh from the Panthers, and it's the Panthers team that's not going to stand for that. But it's not going to mean anything to me, John, if Edmonton doesn't come out and play a really good game in Game 4. Those actions that ended Game 3 will be meaningless.
Well, boys, I think this is Edmonton's last wake-up call, because I think in Game 1, in the second period, when they allowed 17 shots and Skinner was fantastic, that could have been a blowout. So that game kind of morphed into a great game, which goes to overtime, which was a thriller. Game 2 is a great game, no doubt about it. And then we see what happens last night. And Florida will give you one opportunity to recoup your energy today, to recoup more of it tomorrow, to get refocused if you're Edmonton, to get your best players at their very, very best Thursday night, and then take a stab at them. But what ends up happening is Florida gives you just a little bit of breathing room. And if they sense, as they did last night, you're weak in certain areas, they're going to jump on you. They're going to make you pay a price. They're going to take a strip off of you, as you say. You're right about that. But they did so with a purpose, in my opinion, for most of the game. And I think Edmonton was getting tired of getting hit and pounded on the forecheck. And they were not clean coming out of their own zone. So those are the things, along with their discipline, that will be at the forefront, and whichever goalie plays Thursday night.
Exactly.
Those three things will be interesting to look at.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if Stuart Skinner is not back, because he's the guy who got you there originally. He's the better player when he's at his best. And if you can't rely on that, then you really don't deserve to win the cup anyway.
Well, guys, he's 6-0 in Game 4s. And his goals against average
Didn't know that.
just over 1.
Right.
So,
Okay.
And his numbers Game 4 through Game 7 are, what is
Exactly.
it now, like something like 13-2 or 13-1, Games 4 through 7. And that one loss was, Game 7 to Florida last year. So this is his time. And I loved, I don't know if you got to see any of his post game last night, but Skinner was great. I mean,
he's always great.
Held himself accountable, said there were a couple of goals that he would have loved to have had back, knows he needed to be better. And so, look, he's the guy. Now, look, Calvin Pickard showed in that one period that he played, or period and a half, that he looked solid, but Skinner's the guy. And this is, his reputation. He deserves to start in Game 4.
Well, working Monday nights for Amazon, in Canada, and having the Oilers a handful of times, and seeing the Oilers in our division in Seattle, I know this. The players love, the Edmonton Oilers players love Stuart Skinner. Like most teams love their goalie and will go to battle for the goalie. There is the odd time they don't like the goalie. Sometimes that works. Sometimes the goalie doesn't work very hard or is kind of a prima donna. We've seen that over time. That can still work. But by and large, if the team loves you and you're that goalie, they're gonna play great. And Stuart Skinner is a great kid. He really is. He's tremendous. He's very much an upfront guy. He owns everything, maybe to a fault. He's hard on himself, but he's a great story. How he got to this point, how he's played, as JD points out, in clutch situations. Those are things they're going to lean on. But you have to win the net as the first criteria in any playoff series, for my money, over the generations. The game has changed in a variety of ways. the guy who stops the most pucks, no matter if we're talking the 30s or now, it wins. That's pretty basic philosophy. And there's a Hall of Famer at the other end who's right on his game. So it's hard to beat Bobrovsky one-on-one if you're the other goalie, but you certainly have to come close for the Oilers to have a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
John, you threw out the working for Amazon Prime. Ted, I think we would both agree that John is probably one of the most humble people that we've ever been around in this business.
Yeah, it's our job to tell him he's great. Damn it.
Well, there was a recent poll I saw on Instagram where our guest here was voted the #1 play-by-play announcer.
Oh, I didn't see that. Great.
Kenny Albert, Brendan Burr, Ken Daniels were some of the other guys on that list. So congrats to you, John, on being named #1. What I want to ask you about is that you mentioned doing the games in Canada on Amazon Prime. You do the games on TNT. You do the Seattle Kraken games. Like, how do you keep in your mind who your audience is and how you have to change your broadcast potentially in some ways? How do you manage that miracle there?
Well, it's a great question. The foundation of the broadcast and the approach shouldn't change, in my opinion. For young broadcasters that might be watching this, aspiring to get to a level, I think if you change yourself, depending on who you're working for, you're going to get burned because it's hard to do that. So let's start locally. I take a lot of pride in my objectivity, always have. Yes, I'm a homer, but I'm not an unabashed homer, I hope. I try to play it as much down the middle as you can for your regional audience. But you have to recognize who they are and pitch it to them. When I went into Canada this year, at this stage of my career, this is a big opportunity. And I tell you what, I was kind of nervous about it. I wasn't sure, especially how the media that critiques us, how they would see an American getting this opportunity, to be a voice of a network in Canada, to do a national game on a weekly basis. That worked out very well. I think, my background helped a little bit. I think over time, in the way games are exposed now, people have seen me enough that they might understand. And hopefully when they see me for the first time, if it is, maybe they get it. With TNT, it's a 50-50 split. I've done enough national television to know how that works. By and large, you're going to tick off your local crowd anyway. Some people are going to say you're cheering for one side, you're cheering for this side. That goes with the territory. That comes with being a national voice. But I think if you just stay true to who you are and don't change much, you're not going to get burned. If you try to be, here's the suit I'm wearing today, here's the face I have on today, here's my approach, it's not authentic, right? So that's the best thing. I think a young John Forslund probably would not have done that. I think as a older John Forslund, I have kind of morphed into that. Yeah.
We all evolve, hopefully, right? And we learn.
Hopefully, yeah. Some haven't.
Exactly.
It's harder for you, Ted. I understand that.
And the guy on the right, I have no idea how he's evolved.
Oh, he's okay in my book. I know that.
He's learned how to bet better. I know that. But outside of that, I have no idea what's going on with him. Let's get back to last night's game, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. 11 power plays for the Panthers. It's funny. One of the first things we talked about going into the series and actually leading up to the last few series, stay out of the box if you're playing the Oilers. And here it's the opposite. But yet they had 6 chances and only scored once. They never got into the flow. And we'll get into that too. I have some sound today from Tkachuk, McDavid about that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think if you present a game to the officials and you got your best referees and linesmen at this stage, right? Yeah. If you present a game like that, they're going to call a bunch of penalties. If you as it goes deeper, both of you guys know this. As a series goes deeper, there's fewer penalties called. Right. You get to game 7, there should be 0 penalties called, unless it's completely egregious. So let the players decide the game the best they can. But if you start, like Evander Kane did last night, if you start with a couple of situations and then it morphs into this, you have a too many men on the ice, you're forcing the officials to start calling penalties all over the place. And then what ends up happening is yes, they're going to call penalties against Florida to try and even it up. You know, that's human nature. That's kind of the way hockey's always been played. But you had, I believe, an 11-6 differential in terms of opportunities last night. When's the last time we've seen 11 power plays in a Stanley Cup final game? I don't know when that was. I'm sure, well, here we go. Right. So, I mean, there it is. So, I mean, this is a wonderful show. You know, when you see it there, that tells you how, you know, infrequent we see a situation. But that's what happened to the Oilers last night, and that's on them.
Yeah.
They rolled that game out. They started it. They tried to punch back. The game I saw, again, I'm not going to get into how it was officiated, right or wrong.
Right.
I just see it as Edmonton started coming off discipline. And if you come off discipline in a playoff game, that's cardinal sin number one, at least 1A or 1B.
Yeah.
Look, 4 of the penalties were taken 4 of the power plays were in the third period when the game was out of hand. One of the 4 was I think either the too many men or a puck over the glass, and they had a too many men. So, you know, look, half of the penalties, you know, really not a big deal to me.
Yeah, but some of them just.
I mean, for me, Edmonton lost that game in the first 25 minutes of the first, you know, period and a bit. Like that's you had Evander Kane became the old Evander Kane last night. I thought he was very selfish. And I think
not using his brains at all. But you know what? Not just him, because I think the team lost their composure. And we'll hear from Connor McDavid about that in just a few moments. But I don't agree with him. He says, well, it got out of hand late, and that's just the way it is. Part of that is true, but they're just stupid penalties throughout, and they're getting nothing out of them. Retaliation is not going to help against this team that way.
No, but Ted, you had some obvious high sticking. Like we had a lot of high sticking penalties. Anytime that stick goes to the face, you know, those are automatic. Like it's not
absolutely.
Those are automatic, and it happened both ways. For me, Edmonton had a chance early on. You know, they did pepper really all Evan Bouchard, but they had chances early in that game. The big thing for me was when they got to within 2-1, and then the 3-1 goal 2 minutes later. And that's, you know, that really hurt them because, you know, they're feeling good and they didn't have long enough to feel good. And the other telling stat, guys, is that they've trailed for over 126 minutes in this series.
Yeah.
They only trailed for 16 plus minutes against Dallas.
Oh yeah, it's a totally different ball game right here. But like, look at this picture, guys. This is Corey Perry slashing below the knees after the final whistle.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just stupid stuff. But that's scary Perry though. For
Ted, it's the third period of a game where they're trying.
I know what it is.
So it's not the first period. It's not the second. Like I understand Florida would have done the same thing. The rules were reversed. They would have done the same thing.
Okay. But it was everybody. Here's Bouchard again with a slash against Verhaeghe.
Absolutely. I get it.
Yeah, that's a game that's gotten away. That's a team that's been embarrassed. That's a team that is losing it. Let me say this. I think the game, even though there's all kinds of runway, and this might be a ridiculous statement, and it will be, I'm good at that. They lose the game, or they lose sight. Edmonton, they being Edmonton, lose sight of the game on the Marchand goal.
Yeah.
On the first goal of the game. Yeah. It's a face-off. It's just a face-off. You lose a face-off 1 minute into the game. How do you get that far out of position? There's a penalty that was going to be called on the play. Draisaitl elbows, I think, Luostarinen.
Yeah.
Klingberg loses Marchand. Like, he's soft on Marchand. He has him. He loses him. It's in the net. So
here's the shot right here, right between the legs.
And Skinner's in the old hydroculator. Like he's just spinning around. Because the whole play is an abomination. Like you shouldn't be. To me, they're a little bit out of focus. They're not ready to start the game. And so, to JD's point, if you're chasing as much as they have been, guess what? You're the first time on enemy territory, and now you've opened up that. Yeah. You've opened up that emotion.
Yeah.
And that emotion that we see on this guy's face is that's how good the Panthers are to their identity. When they see a team, that's what that fierce look comes out, because I saw it in the previous series firsthand against Carolina. When they realized they were outmanning Carolina physically, and they had the upper hand, they go for it. So they needed that. They get the second goal. It was a game. The Perry goal gives a lifeline. And then the backbreaker is Reinhardt. But then the game is unglued from that point. But that's where Edmonton they're better coached and they're better positionally than what they showed and what they did show in that game. So we'll see Thursday.
And they were laughing at Edmonton. Like, they were laughing at the Oilers. And the other thing, I thought Kevin Bieksa made a good point on the Hockey Night broadcast. He said, especially when you're on the road, and it's tougher. It's tougher when you're down and you don't have that crowd to support you. It feels worse than maybe it is, and then it starts to snowball.
And then the players know that, right? The players, what we don't have as broadcasting people and observers of the game is unless we played at that level, you don't understand exactly the human dynamic that goes into it. And that's why I think it's hard for fans. Like, I think fans sit back and they say, what, especially in our game, momentum in hockey. Like Eddie, my great friend Eddie O talks about this all the time. Eddie Olczyk talks about momentum, losing momentum, and then the key is, how do you get momentum back? Yeah. And that's you can't explain that sometimes. Right. So that was a runaway train on the Oilers. But I think they have to be very careful. Don't fool yourselves. Don't think you're right there, because by and large, I think Florida has controlled most of the series. Yeah. So, with a good second period, we could be 3-0 here in game one, if the goals go in.
But John, the pushback for me would be is that Edmonton, the third period in the first two games, did exactly what they did with Dallas. I think they held Florida 4 shots in the third and 5 shots in the third in game 2. Like they do shut it down. And Ted, I'll let you jump back in. But my final point on this whole thing is thank God it's not aggregate scoring. It's still only 2-1 in the series.
Exactly.
That's it.
You keep texting me that. Well, let's look at the next game. And you're right. I mean, this should be a long series, but the wear down factor, and I'm going to stress that until this thing is over. It could just keep getting worse. One never knows. Let's hear from Matthew Tkachuk on how he dealt with the end of this game and the physicality after game 3.
It is what it is. We talk about being composed, and if you got to take a punch in the face, if you got to take a slash in the face, a cross check, slash in the leg, whatever the case is, you got to do it. There's a bigger picture with the win here for us, and just wanted to protect ourselves and protect our teammates when needed. But at the end of the day, you got to be smart in a game like this, and I thought our team did that and really protected each other well.
Okay, so he's mostly talking about the third period, of course, when it got out of hand. But it was funny. A lot of times, your buddy there, Davis, Sam Bennett, was doing a smart turtling job there. It was like, hey, you guys want to hit me? Hit me. It's not going to affect me. We're up by 100. Good luck to you.
Well, he took some nasty cross checks to the back.
No doubt.
I'm interested to see. I wonder how the lingering effects. How about this stat on Sam Bennett? More goals in this playoffs than 5 of his 11 NHL regular seasons.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
phenomenal. That's crazy.
And tell
Good
everybody.
Timing. Good timing.
Davis, tell everybody again what your Bennett stat is before this series going in, that you have a little interest in him.
Oh, I bet him at 39-1 to win the Conn Smythe.
There you go. Huh?
Yes, he's now down to. I mean, I haven't looked lately to see what the number is now, but yeah, I mean, it's incredible what he's done, and yes, he's done what 12 of his 14 goals are on the road.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean, look, this is a guy that I know that my understanding is from listening to Elliot Friedman on today's podcast was that the Panthers were trying to pay him the same as Carter Verhaeghe, which is kind of what I figured. They were offering him the 8x7 deal. I think they're going to have to budge more towards closer to 8 than 7. when it's all done. But I
Is
think
that possible?
he's in Florida. Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
It's possible.
All right. That's all that matters. All right.
Ted, you'll chip in. John, you'll chip in, right?
Well, of course. Just a little bit, just a little bit.
I have a couple of loose pennies left that now that they're going out of style.
Well, the thing is, that's the other thing in this series is down the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is Edmonton going to now, whether they play McDavid and Draisaitl as two centers or they double down, whatever they do, 97-29, if that's 1-2, nobody's beating that, right? Nobody's beating that. But 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4 is really important because Lundell is an excellent player.
Yep.
And so, and that's why if Florida does tie up Bennett and he stays there, as Bennett ages and he becomes your 3 and Lundell becomes your 2, you're almost in the same position. That's why it's really important, I think, for Florida to re-sign him. But anyway, this allows Barkov to be him.
Yeah.
And then all of the sudden, Sam Bennett is feasting on whatever it is, and the goals are going in, and we know he's a great competitor, and he just brings a throwback mentality that I love. And I'm glad it's here because we're not losing that in our sport. We're not losing that hard-nosed great player. We still have to have that.
You mentioned Barkov, and again, I'll reference the podcast because I was just listening to Elliot this morning. He had a player text him saying that he feels Barkov intentionally pushed Klingberg into the official to help set up that goal. He knew what he was doing because he saw that Klingberg, they described it as kind of like a trap in the NBA. He had nowhere to go, and that helped create the goal. The other thing also, think about what happened in game 2. Barkov and Ekblad both got danced. I thought Barkov had a far better game in game 3. And I thought Ekblad, he scored the power play goal. But he was very honest. He talked about getting danced by McJesus, and it happens. And there's only, you try your best. But I thought it was interesting to hear just the intelligence they were talking about. The guy who was a -3 in game 2, the Selke Award winner. But here they felt he made a really intelligent play in helping to create that goal. Pushing Klingberg into the official.
Yeah. Let's hear from McDavid right now. And we got 2 minutes of him with a few questions. And I think this puts a pretty good a statement about where they're at right now.
Obviously, when you start in the first with, 4 penalties, almost half the period you're killing. So not a good way to get into your game. Weird game. I thought a lot of power play and penalty kill either way. Never got to our game.
How do you assess the team's overall performance?
Yeah, obviously it wasn't our best. Not our best at all. I don't think our best has shown up all series long, but it's coming.
Sure about that?
Shift the focus to finding a way to get a win in Game 4.
You guys had some offense in the first couple of games. It was shut down a little more tonight. Was that? I feel like you guys were the architects of that, or did they do a better job on it? Or do you think the offense went?
I thought we got away from our game. Part of that's due to chasing it a little bit. Part of that is, obviously credit to them. They played well. You find yourself in a hole. You're going to do some uncharacteristic things, and I thought we got away from our game a little bit there. We've done well chasing down games and turning the tide there. Obviously, we didn't do it tonight.
Connor, with this style of game, like chippiness and all the stuff, all the extracurriculars, more to their liking than it would be to yours, do you think?
We feel like we can play any game. I thought when the game's out of hand, you're going to see that stuff. I don't think it was necessarily that way early on while we're still playing. When we get into garbage time, those things happen, and I don't mind when those things happen. It's as I said, it's what good teams do. Fight your way out of the rink. I don't mind that in garbage time, but obviously, as I said, the penalties in the first hurt us. You're down 2, you're chasing it. It's tough.
Yeah, the penalties hurt them. This guy's still pretty pissed off too, and Draisaitl. Look at the look on his
was on a
face.
milk carton last night, guys.
Yep.
I thought it was the worst game he's had of the playoffs.
Maybe ever in a big game.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I think
credit Florida too, right?
Well, credit Bobrovsky. I mean, Bobrovsky in the first period, four sequences. I think there was four real good. The one off the mask, he's fighting through the screens. He's pucks hitting him, or he's making a terrific save. That's the thing that, Connor knows that, they're going to get 2 days now, which is unusual. They're going to get 2 days at this point to kind of rehash, refocus another day. Should help Edmonton. But this is the guy here. Yeah. Like, no matter how good you play, what if you can't beat him?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, they remember they did put up an 8 spot against him last year in the playoffs. I think for me, like Edmonton, well, one of the big things is that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins didn't take a face-off last night.
Right.
And that's, so there's obviously something with the hand, the wrist, there's something that he's dealing with. He's not, look, in his now 10 games against the Oilers, I think he's got a goal and an assist in the 10 Stanley Cup final games against Edmonton, if my memory serves me correct, and he's a -2. But the fact that he can't take draws is pretty significant. So the 2 days off should help him. Yeah, look, Edmonton's got they got to regroup. There's no question. They can't play that same style for sure in game number 4, or else they will be facing a must-win game.
Yeah, and Skinner was not awful last night. He just wasn't good enough.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. That's why I don't even think there should be a doubt about whether he plays it. I mean, it's not like he let in 5 bad goals. That's just not reality. But, when you pull him the way they did, it's disappointing because it's the final. What are you going to do, right?
Well, it's not like it wasn't a Jake Ottinger pull, guys. This was a
no, absolutely.
This was just, take a rest, regroup. You're going to have 72 hours to just kind of rest it and reload. So that's kind of like, that's the way that John, I'm just wondering, you've done games in Florida. So I'm just curious for you as a broadcaster, best place to broadcast the game, and as any media member, as we all are, we're always there. We're there for the food. Who's got the best food?
Well, I make a practice of not eating, so I'm the wrong guy to ask. I eat well in the morning. I don't eat again till the game's over.
That's why you're going to outlive all of us, because you can't eat that food.
I don't like it. I don't like a heavy feeling. I want to be hungry, and I feel I'm a little sharper. And it doesn't work with my airwaves, so it's no good.
Are you also like me, John? By the way, a little bit depending on what you put in your mouth. Sometimes it sticks in your throat a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
You 100%. What you're eating, everybody's affected differently.
Right, and I do enjoy coffee, probably too much. But coffee's not supposed to be good for vocal cords either. Yeah. But I do that. So anyway, but the best building for me is Montreal.
Oh.
So Montreal is my favorite. I'm really biased on this one, but I do believe it's true. I love our perch in Seattle. I think they got it right. It's a gondola type situation, a bridge like we have at Madison Square Garden. Florida is like Washington, Carolina, Tampa. All those buildings are the same. You're up, you're back. It's not ideal. It's hard to see. It really is. And when you get playoff games, it's exceptionally challenging for a play caller, because goalposts, blocks, all those things are vital. Everything's so important no matter what. It can frustrate you. You got to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't been to San Jose for a bit, but it looks like they've changed their location, but it sure
used to be the best. Yeah. It used to be great. Now it used to be. Now we're up in the rafters in what looks like an electrical room. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
No. It's almost like they forgot about the press box in San Jose when they.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad, because it's and it was a great place. Yeah.
Like the special seating or something. Is that what they did?
Well, no, it's just the press box though was like it's like they forgot that they had to build one. And you were, when you got off the top the top floor of the elevator, you walked up a set of stairs to go to the press box. Like, oh crap, we need to build one.
We were in the first deck, where the first deck starts in the old days.
Yeah.
But maybe 10, 12 years ago, they took that visiting spot away. Randy Hahn is still there. They do one up and one down, so it's just Randy there. But the game presentation people were moved down to that area, which booted visiting out and national out. I've never done a national game in that spot where Randy is. Maybe that's the case now, but anyway, yeah.
So,
Okay,
John, pulled pork or peach cobbler in Carolina?
No, I don't do it.
John Bartlett was like upset that they didn't have peach cobbler anymore in Carolina.
They've changed a few things in Carolina from what it once was, but I don't. Yeah, I understand that. And over the years, when I was in Carolina working for the Hurricanes, I loved hearing people rave about that. And the ice cream machine, which I think has been broken for a few years now, because they were saying it wasn't functioning either in the previous round. But anyway, that's the way it is. Most of the teams do a really good job with press meals now. They do a nice job. Yeah.
John, let's talk about the Florida head coach, and we spoke about him off the air briefly before this. Where do you see his evolution as a person, where you were with him way back when, and where he is now as the most comfortable head coach in any sport on the planet? That's all I could say.
Well, Ted, comfortable is the operative word, because he, like we all do, as we get older, we get a little bit more comfortable in who we are.
Yep.
We care less about what people think. We care less about what we say sometimes, maybe to a fault. But with Paul, it's interesting. So when they said in the broadcast last night, and Kenny Albert said it was a 40th anniversary of him being appointed as an assistant coach in Hartford. I was there that day, so I remember it well. I remember him joining Paul Holmgren's staff, and I remember the miserable start the Whalers got off to. And I also remember, and this is a true story, when Paul was named head coach in his late 20s, second youngest coach in the history of the game to Gary Green back in the day with the Washington Capitals. And I believe they played the San Jose Sharks on November 7th, 1995. I believe that was his first game.
Okay.
I got, after the press conference, I got Jimmy Rutherford to the side and I said, you know, what about him? You had him in junior. What about him? And he said, you know, what his traits were. But Jimmy said he's going to be one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game.
Wow. Nice.
Honest to God.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, right. Like anybody would.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, right. And I kept that quiet. Obviously, you're not going to, that's his own opinion. But then watching Paul in that first wave, which took him into the last season in Hartford, tough situation, moving to Carolina, tough situation. There actually had construction people in the locker room on opening night, still building the room when he was giving his opening speech to the players before they were going to go out and play the first ever regular season game against the vaunted Penguins at the time in 1997. Anyway, what he was then, and then when he came back for 2.0, led the Hurricanes to the conference final in 2009, he was different. And now he's totally different. You know, the stint in Toronto, I think, led him down a path of understanding what the job the media has within the game, which I don't think he entirely understood in his younger years.
Yeah,
he was
that's
just
one
trying.
of those things you really don't know until you know, right?
Right. He was just trying to coach. He was insecure. He'll tell you this. He was insecure about his abilities with NHL players, many of whom were older than him. Yep. Way different game, way different culture. Toronto, the Winnipeg years were very good to him. He spent some time in the media, which helped him. He spent some time working for TSN, which I think helped him understand that aspect. Now, somebody watching this would say, why is that important? It is. For an NHL coach, any coach at the pro level, the highest level as the head coach, media savvy is a big part of your job. as much as getting the team ready to go. And the second thing that I think is vitally important, it's the most important thing he does, is he understands people. He understands how to deploy people in certain areas. He understands their personalities. He's a great manager of personalities, and that's come with time. So he is seasoned really well. He doesn't think that, anybody and everybody is out to get him anymore. I think winning the Stanley Cup, I brought a tear to my eye when they did it last year, because Paul and I over the years have had an interesting relationship. I was around him a lot, but I also many times was probably part of his frustration. I get that. I was part of the media that was always following him, and maybe, bothered that he had to take time with us on a daily basis and answer our stupid questions and kind of help us. Now, as a media person, he's a joy. Like, if you're working the Stanley Cup final right now and you get to private time with him as a rights holder, it's unbelievable. He'll give you everything you need. And if it's just a shade on the BS side, you're okay with it.
Whatever.
Because it works. It works.
Did you catch his 1 minute thing behind the bench last night when they asked him about
unbelievable?
That was one of the greatest of all time.
Because I had the
John, he said he was being interviewed at during the game, right? And they said, "So, what are your thoughts on Ben?" It was Bennett, right? They were talking about that. Like, okay, he's playing so great. You guys are going to have to pay him and all this. And he goes and he says, "Well, he has Denang. What is it? Fever? I forgot what he had.
The plague. He's got the plague. He's got a fever.
He's got a bad.
He's got a lot of things.
He's done that. He's done that before, where he said, where I can't remember if it was Bennett or another free agent, where he said, "Oh yeah, he's a really bad guy."
Yeah, that's what he sort of said. He's a real bad guy to deal with.
That's
but that's during the game. How great is that?
And when you do get to know him away from the game, you understand how funny he is. And he's a great family guy. He's got wonderful roots, but the thing about it is that really comes up big now, is he deflects so much from his team.
Yes,
exactly.
Because by the time they roll him out to the podium, he's up there for as long as you need. Now, in the meantime, the players have scattered. The players are gone. You've had your time with the players, but it's fleeting because you got to get to the coach. Yeah. He's a great quote. And his numbers speak for themselves. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, well, what he said about Barkov, actually, if it was before the game yesterday or on the off day, he was asked about Barkov and his -3, performance against Edmonton in Game 2, and his first words were, "Trade him."
We're trading him. Yeah,
we're trading him.
Yeah. See,
John,
but he's learned. Go ahead. I just one last thing. He's learned how to do that.
Yeah.
Because way back when, that question might have frustrated him.
Absolutely. It's an art. It's an absolute art.
Yeah.
You mentioned Hartford. I just want to ask you a question about Hartford. When I say, Brittany, you're a fine girl, what goes through your head?
Well, that's over my head.
That was a victory song in the locker room back in the day. Great song. One hit wonder. What was the name of the band? Google that. But anyway,
Looking Glass.
Looking Glass.
It
That's
wasn't
right.
Brittany. It was
Brandy.
Yeah, Brandy. Right. Exactly.
Brandy. Yeah.
What a great wife you'll be. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
who is
sailor's.
Brandy there? I'm afraid to ask.
But I don't know. I can't divulge everything here.
Okay.
But it's a sailor's song. It's a great tune. And they used that back in the day. Those early 90s.
One-hit wonders of the past.
Yeah.
John, I think you may have started a trend that goes back to 2018 that you may not be aware of, that I think we see more and more, but I think it actually, I'm going to give you the credit and you can take it or not, but it goes to your former crew in Carolina, and I'll give Chopper Paul Hemming the credit, but the POV camera in the booth in Carolina, because John's got the moves and he's very animated during those broadcasts. We're seeing it more and more. We're seeing many Instagram posts with teams doing it.
Okay, tell everybody, John. Tell the average human what a POV camera is.
A point of view camera. So we have
most people wouldn't know that.
It's positioned inside the broadcast booth, and we're seeing more and more teams posting on their Instagram
Yeah, it is
you know,
nice.
the call and then the attached with the video. But John, I think you got this started back in 2018, and if I remember correctly, you had a couple of, you know, because you're moving your hands everywhere, you may have knocked over some coffee or something on your notes. But
oh yeah, yeah. I've almost.
Is that am I correct?
Well, you mentioned Paul Hemming, the great Chopper, one of the greatest, if not the greatest director I've worked with in my time in Carolina. He came to us from Sportsnet, which was a blessing for us locally in Raleigh. Went on to be, and still is, great director on the Utah package now, and got the TNT package launched and did countless World Juniors for TSN and international play. Anyway, high level director. Anyway, he came up with let's put this in the booth. Now this gets back to never changing who you are. So I stand when I announce. I move. I get my body moving in ways I'm embarrassed by, but I move around a lot. Edzo hates it, but I do it more because he hates it. JT Brown puts up with it. All the partners I've had, Trip Tracy back in Carolina, loved it. Anyway, they decided to throw it in the booth, and I said, okay, you put that thing in the booth. I'm not going to play to it. I'm just going to do what I normally do. And so anyway, I like it now. I do see it a lot. It shows the emotion of the announcers around the league, the broadcasters around the league, how much they care, how much they put into a call, you know, what goes on. It's interesting to watch the body language between the play caller and the analyst, right? The play caller's in the moment, going crazy, making the call. You watch these analysts, they're trying to recapture their thoughts. There was one great Josh and Razor in Dallas during the playoffs. They had a camera on those two guys. And Darryl Ray, who's congratulations on going to Hall of Fame, well-deserved. You know, he's kind of getting himself into what he's going to say. And he's a tremendous wordsmith, as we know. And then he spews this unbelievable, you know, dialogue of words that we have to look up and the emotion of the goal. And, you know, and he just stamps it. So, yeah, I think fans love that. So that's just part of promoting the game. That's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's hear from two guys real briefly on what makes this Florida team special. For the head coach we just talked about, of course.
There's so many leaders in our locker room that a lot of experience, a lot of great leaders. There wasn't one thing that was said. It was just a collective group of guys chipping in and saying the right things, just making sure everyone was mentally prepared. And we all did a great job. There's so many leaders.
This was after game 2, and the same here with Brad Marchand.
I think it helps a ton with the amount of experience that this team has. A lot of guys have been through big moments, and they feel comfortable in them. And when you have a group that has that, and just we have so many different leaders on the team that can manage different situations. So we definitely have that confidence in our group that we can be resilient in situations. I think it.
Okay. You know, one of the things about Brad Marchand, I think, he has brought a leadership to this team. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it a quiet leadership, or do you think he is now so much part of that entire group that he's able to say, hey, baby, I'm here and I'm going to do whatever the hell it takes to get a cup? What do you think?
I think this. I think this is a genius move, obviously, to bring in a player of this caliber and put him in the role he's in. And the reason for and Seth Jones too, but Jones is a little different. In Marchand's case, you brought in a captain of an original 6 team with a Stanley Cup history and pedigree and a winner, and you've brought him to a team that already has all of that. So when he gets there, he looks around, and remember, he was injured and he wasn't able to play right away. But when he gets there, he looks around and says, you know what? They've got this all figured out. Sometimes a trading, like when they brought Ranton into Carolina, they were bringing him there to be the savior. Not that it was already a great team, but he was going to put them over the top. He was going to be leaned on heavily. He was going to be looked at as he was at the end of his playoff run with Dallas. Like, where are you, Mikko? We need you now, because they needed him. Marchand could go to Florida, and those players are already there. The hierarchy of leadership is already there. So he can be on a third line and play with two really good young players and bring them along and be himself. And he doesn't have the burden of responsibility. Yes, he does now because they're all looking at him. This is very similar to what we did in North Carolina, in Raleigh, with Mark Recchi and Doug Waite in 06 when they brought them in. They were high-level players with previous team, but they didn't have to be with the Hurricanes.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they were just part of it. Sometimes, you know, that's a perfect fit. Jones, they needed somebody to take the place of Brandon Montour. They were looking for that all year. And Jones kind of played himself into, I don't want to say obscurity, but with Chicago, he didn't look like the player he is here. I think it was always there. It's just he needed an opportunity to be as great an athlete as he is. Right. So these are tremendous moves by Bill Zito, who's done a remarkable job finding guys, finding players that are either diamonds in the rough that fit their plan or high-end guys in the case of Marchand.
I think there's similarities too, don't you, JD, with the Tampa and with Florida, the way they continually turn things over, but they never have to rebuild. They always have a great roster.
Yeah, I think there are some similarities there. And I think that, but to your point, John, I think Jones, just like Marchand, didn't have to be the guy. Like, he's not the guy that has to anchor that blue line in Florida. You know, he did for a time when Ekblad was out. But with Ekblad back, you know, he doesn't have to be the guy, yet he can still kind of be, you know, still play top power play unit for Florida. So I think, you know, we're seeing just like, you know, I keep hearing it, you know, guys come to Florida and they get better. They just get better. Marchand, a couple of things with Marchand. One is he's 8-1. His teams are now 8-1 in the Cup final when he scores a goal. That was a pretty telling number. But the other story that I heard him talk about was when he walked into that Panther locker room for the first time, like one of the first guys he went up to was Ekblad, goes to shake his hand, and Ekblad looks at him and goes, "This is not right."
That is great.
Yeah, but you know, that's how far that's how far the Panthers have come as an organization.
Yeah.
They've come from when Ekblad was a first overall pick, and Barkov was a lottery pick, and Jonathan Huberdeau was there. You know, it was not the destination, you know, point for every NHL player, to be fair. So they have transformed their culture. Their organization is sound. So when a player like that shows up, it's not going to take them long to recognize how real it is and how legit the situation is.
Right.
And if it's not, they're not going to have much time for it. They're going to try, but they're not going to be as fully invested as, you know, that's why they break down these trading deadline deals don't always work out, because it just doesn't seem like it's right for that player. And then they're not in it totally. And then before long, the team gets eliminated and they go to July 1. You know, now it's going to be a tough decision for Florida in terms, they can't keep everybody. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But Marchand will continue on. He's about as young a 37-year-old you're ever going to find. And he can go to a team that just needs that piece, you know. I think it's fair to say for him, with no disrespect, you know, he needs to go to a team that's right there, that he can do what he's doing now if it's not re-signing with the Panthers.
It's the perfect time to ask you, Mr. Forslund, about my pet peeve of almost anything in broadcasting is pronouncing the guy's name correctly. Brad Marchand and Brad Marchand, he said, I looked it up online. He's there and he says Marchand with a D, right?
Right.
And then he talks on the phone and he calls himself Marchand. So he doesn't, basically he says he doesn't care. So how do you choose which one you want to go with?
Well, we choose it because we try to rely and people have gone directly to Brad. Yeah. I haven't had the opportunity, but people have gone directly to him, and he's kind of changed it a couple of times.
Exactly.
So, but I always try to respect, you know, the market that you're in and how they're saying the name.
Okay.
It just causes the least amount of unrest among the fans when you're actually calling the game. This one, I think, has some jocularity attached to it. I think Brad has had fun with people along his way here. I think he may have in a humorous way, misled people along the way. I do know this. I've talked to enough Maritimers. I've talked to enough people who know the family, who say if you're in the Halifax area, it's Marchand. I saw him the other day, and he said Brad Marchand. He said it. This was like 2 days ago. Yeah. So I have no clue what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just know he's a hell of a player.
Back and forth. I think he's doing it on purpose.
I think he may be. Now, we had this issue with Steven Lorentz of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I had in Carolina, and I know the whole history of Steven Lorentz and Steven Lorentz. This is a family argument they can't settle within his own family, where the mom's side says one thing, dad's side says the other. We had to pin him down with Amazon in training camp to please tell us how you want it. And he said, please call me Lorentz. So that's what it is.
I'm trying to remember. There were brothers in the NHL who both pronounced their last name differently.
The Mahaliks.
Yeah.
Oh,
remember them?
Great.
Yeah.
Milan Mahalik and Zbenek Makalik.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah. Again, we're trying to do the best we can, but you're the perfect person to ask of this. And how great is this little rat routine after every game here with Brad Marchand or Shand, however you want to say it?
Well, this is like going to Dairy Queen. This is what the playoffs are all about. Yep. And every team I've been around, and I've been around many teams that have gone deep, but 3 championship teams, and I count the 2 Calder Cups in my career as the same thing, just that nobody really pays attention except the local markets. Yep. There's far fewer fans, less media attention, but the dynamics of the team are the same. So all the little songs like we talked about before, all the little things that go on within the room, these are all part of how they win and how they build chemistry. And that's how you know they have a tight team. As crazy as that looks, that just tells you that they're tight. They have everything it takes to win.
I was just going back through my notes, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not surprised that Dallas got eliminated. Not because they've struggled against the Oilers before, John.
Yeah.
Since 2009, we have only had 2 teams in the NHL that have won the Cup that does not have on their own team a player that they drafted first or second overall. Only 2. Wow. It would be the St. Louis Blues when they won. Petro was their highest pick at number 4, and the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, they had Jack Eichel, who was second overall, but not drafted by them. But every team since 2009 has drafted the first or second overall player.
Interesting.
So Dallas was one of does not have a player that they drafted first or second overall.
Now Dallas has done an exceptional job drafting. There's no doubt about it. When you get Heiskanen, who was a first round pick, Robertson, who I believe was a second round pick, Ottinger, you go down the list. There's a lot of homegrown talent there. So I think Jim Nill has done a very good job. But there's been so many close calls that when you get close, this is what ends up happening because you don't want to bottom out, right? But what time has shown us, and you're 100% right, Chicago's another team, the old Blackhawks, that you can put in the same realm with first overall picks. You have to pay a price to get good. Yeah. And that's what I tell the people in Seattle who follow the Kraken, who are getting anxious in year number 5. I understand how the Golden Knights did it. I understand how they were able to get there a little bit quicker, and good on them for being in the now. Time will tell as we move down the road what happens with some of these deals where they've picked up some great players, what kind of future they have with what they've mortgaged. But by and large, Colorado, Carolina, go down the list of Florida, the elite teams. You have to be in a lottery slot and not make a mistake to grow the elite. You're never trading for a 1C, and you're very rare. And Vegas did, but that's an anomaly. That's something that is an outlier. You're not going to by and large sign an unrestricted free agent as your 1C or your Norris Trophy winning defenseman or your Andre Vasilevsky level goalie.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So what happens? Your fans have to pay a price. You have to be bad. And that's why the Ducks they're going to emerge. You know, I really believe in what they're doing there. They're going to have a collection of very good young players before long, and they've made the coaching change, and then it's going to be like, well, there they are, and it's the Kings that are going to have to recycle back.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're running out of time here a little bit. I got to hustle in a few minutes to go to the Rams OTA. I got some business to do over there. A little
better you than us.
Can I ask you just to help me with one quick story? You got when you found out about moving from Hartford to Carolina, I was told that everybody had something, an envelope pushed into their mail slot, in their office. Is that true?
Yeah, there's two stories. There's all kinds of rumors. There was a game in March, middle of March, around St. Patrick's Day. Colorado came in with Patrick Waugh. The Whalers outshot the Avalanche 45-20, something like that. Waugh won the game on his own. I did the game. I went home, turned on the local news, and they said, breaking story from Capitol Hill in Hartford, the Whalers are moving. That's how I found out.
Wow.
About a month later, there was envelopes given to everybody that worked for the team, and it was either welcome to Raleigh or unfortunately you're not going to go. Here's your severance plan. That's what they had to do. So luckily I was. Yeah.
Wow.
Right,
and they were gonna go with a small group, and they were going to build with people that knew the new market in terms of marketing and sales in those area and community relations. So that's what made that whole thing painstaking and one of the worst times in my career, which turned into a great time, but only because I was lucky enough to go. We lost a lot of great people that worked for the team. No doubt.
Sure. Yeah, that transition's never easy. A couple of quick notes before we get to John's betting tips of the week. We got to say congratulations to TJ Oshie on an incredible 16 years in the league, announcing his retirement this week. I was lucky enough to be standing next to him as he was crying when he won the Stanley Cup on the ice, and somebody sent me this picture that was on national TV.
That's the interview with Scott Oak, I think.
What's that?
He got the interview with Scott Oak where he was crying.
No. I think he did a separate one with him.
Oh, okay.
And then this was a group thing, and he cried more with us.
Nice.
They were just showing around the ice as each guy was getting their congratulations, right? But TJ was absolutely incredibly authentic that day. I had never dealt with him before. John, have you? I mean, is he that kind of a guy? I was really impressed.
Yeah, when players retire, if I know the player and have a relationship, I will extend best wishes on social media. TJ, I do know him, but I only know him through covering him. As an outsider nationally, never on any of the teams I've covered on a local basis. But he's exceptional because I said he's a hockey player through and through. So I threw out on social media, but a joy to watch and a joy to cover. And that combination, you don't always get it. You usually get a joy to watch and maybe not so great to cover, or really great to cover, not so great to watch. I mean, this is a special guy that went through a lot to just try to fight through real tough injuries, played a hard game, played very well for the United States in international circumstances. Really good. We haven't seen the end of TJ Oshie. He was on ESPN during the playoffs. Yeah. I think he might want to take some time maybe, or dip his toe in the water on a broadcasting front. If he does, he'll be great at it. He'll be great at whatever he decides to do. But I know he loves hockey immensely, so I think there's a place for him in the game if he wants to.
Maybe we can get him on the show sometime, JD. I mean, he would be fantastic.
Yeah, he's got the business that they do the protective equipment for NHL players.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the timing, real quick, he was crying not just because he won the cup, because he did it in front of his dad, who had Alzheimer's at the time, and he passed away not that long after that, if I remember correctly. So it was just incredible. I was standing like 20 feet away as they were hugging each other, and it was like, wow, I'm having a hard time watching this. It was unbelievable emotion.
And that's what the cup means to everybody.
Yep, exactly.
And that's why it's the greatest trophy and the greatest game, because that's the emotion that you feel from everybody attached to it when they hand it out.
Yep. We're going to have to talk about new coaches down the road. I just want to congratulate old friend Ray Bennett, new assistant coach of the New York Islanders, won a Stanley Cup here with the Colorado Avs. And so he's moving on, hopefully, to bigger and better things. One never knows, but a great guy, former assistant with the Kings. I assume you got a chance to know him some, Johnny.
Yeah, he's another one of these guys that has a lot of time for you, and just a career coach. And Seattle just hired one in Lane Lambert, who gets a chance to prove that he can be a really good head coach. It's up to him. It's up to the players that are put in place, by Jason Botterill there now. We'll see. But I cheer for these, like Ray Bennett. I cheer for the guys who have worked a long time as good as they can be in secondary roles when they get an opportunity. Ray's going to go back to do what he's always been able to do. He's one of the best assistants any head coach can have in the NHL. Yeah.
Is there any talk at all in Seattle about Jennifer? It's Jennifer, right? Who's the assistant coach coming back?
Jessica Campbell.
Jessica Campbell. Sorry, I'm thinking of something.
Yeah, Jessica Campbell. Yes. Yeah, they did. They mentioned it yesterday. They did. They rolled out Lambert yesterday, the press, and there is a role for her. She has been retained on the staff.
Oh,
just
great.
Not sure how that's going to work out. I think they're trying to figure out what roles it will be, but she's been given an opportunity that she earned, and she should be able to continue to move forward with it and not get caught up at this stage of her career in something that happened when they decided to make a change. So I think the team sees, her worth in terms of how she relates to younger players and their development. She did a great job in the American Hockey League for 2 seasons in that role. Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out, but good for her.
Exactly.
She's going to be part of the staff moving forward. Yes.
Yeah, you just never know when you have a connection with a coach like Danny Bilesma, who brought her in the desert and then brought her up to Seattle. Sometimes that just goes away, and it's great to know that they want to keep her.
Yeah, and they went out of their way to say that when the change was made. And then I think in the hiring process, whoever they brought in, had to make sure that was part of it moving forward, because they see true value in her and what she's been able to do. And she's a tremendous inspiration for all of us, not just, being the first female behind the bench. It goes beyond that. It's really good.
And Jessica, I apologize for screwing up your name. Anyway, okay, Davis, make us some damn money for once in your life, please.
All right, here we go. We're going to come back with what I went with in game 3, which was both teams to win by 1.5 goals. As long as that happens, you're going to come profitable, because Florida is at plus 164 if they win by 1.5 goals, and Edmonton's plus 285. So you'll make some money there. Evan Bouchard, at least 3 shots on goal, and I'll even take him smaller amount to get 4 shots on goal.
Wow.
Brad Marchand, I'm going to play him for both a goal and an assist, because as long as he gets one of them, you're going to make plus money, as opposed to if you play him for just a point, you have to lay $1.20 to win $1. So that's the way I'm going to attack that. Sam Bennett, you got to play him for a goal, and the other rat, Corey Perry. The prices are too good not to play the rat for a goal on the Edmonton side.
And if you call him Marchand, you might even get more money.
Well, I'm just gonna see what I can do to get a Dairy Queen sponsorship. That's all I'm looking for.
All right, sounds good. Anyway, guys, hopefully we'll have a nice long series. But if we have anything similar on Thursday night from the last game, this might be a quick one.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think this is. I thought last night was going to give us an indication of where we're headed here. So. We'll get Edmonton's best Thursday night. I'm just not sure from the goal out, it's going to be enough. We'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. 2 Johns, appreciate it. And wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
it's great.
Have a great summer, Forslund. We appreciate your time.
Anytime for you guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks much. Enjoy the Cup Series, everybody.